Yes, once again, thank you very much for supporting this. I wish I could be there with you all in person. And so today I want to talk to you about student-powered research. And no, this isn't just kind of having a go at the fact that the most research you'll ever do is as a PhD student. This is actually really about how, we're using students and their motivation to build this incredible research capability. So just quickly, yes, I'm Dr. Rebecca Allen. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm the acting co-director for the Swinburne Space Technology and Industry Institute. And yeah, today I wanted to talk to you about our journey in space. And so what does this, mean? and really it all comes down to our students and boiling down this fundamental question, our university students coming up to us and literally just saying, how do we get jobs in space? All right, this is great. I have this amazing engineering degree. I have this amazing science degree or law or design, but I want to work in space industry. And we know Australia has, a space agency now, and we're seeing all of these companies start. But how do I actually take my degree and enter into that field, enter into that workforce? And so we're sitting there as educators and we're thinking, well, gosh, this is, we've got to be able to answer this question for our students, because that's ultimately our goal, is to see them apply what they're learning, to real life. And so we then went on a literal journey. So Professor Kilborn, who you just heard from, Professor Alan Duffy, and myself, we had the opportunity to travel to America, to California, to meet up with this program called Quest. Now, this is a program that we were invited to participate in that is designed for high school students. And Quest is based out of Valley Christian High School, which is in San Jose, so right around the corner from Silicon Valley. And so it's no coincidence that they basically were kind of thinking of the same thing. How could they have their students access space to really be inspired and understand, what this career pathway looks like? So they brought in, ex-IBM programmers, ex-NASA engineers, and designed this incredible program where students got to design, build, and fly their very own experiments that went to the International Space Station, excuse me. So these teams of students are working and designing everything. And so, it's not a secret. You talk to most high school students, they love space, right? And we have our university students that are just asking how do we get access to space? How do we get into this career sector? And of course, for us as, university staff, we want to create these opportunities, and for teaching and also for research. Who doesn't want to work on a new fun space experiment? I mean, I think I'm talking to the right people here today. And so that really led us to put our heads together and say, what is this new kind of program? Like how can we take from this program that's for high school students and adapt it and make it something that fits for our students here in Australia, both high school and university students. So we created the Swinburne Haileybury International Space Station Experiment, or SHINE program. So Haileybury College is a fantastic secondary school here in Melbourne, and they took the plunge. They decided to team up with us. So the very first year, to design and send an experiment to space. And so the first topic that we came up with was magnetorheological fluid. And you can see the tiny experiment capsule here that this whole project had to fit inside. So there's engineering involved. And you might think as well, like, well, I'm hearing from an astrophysicist who thought, of magnetorheological fluids, which are in essence tiny little iron particles that are suspended and make up what's called a smart fluid. And yeah, you're right. I certainly didn't come up with that idea. Our high school students actually came up with it, because from day one, we knew that in order for this to be a success, they had to be the drivers of the project. And so we had, them researching and coming up with ideas, but you'll also see on the right-hand side of the screen, that's our team shot. So we have our team of students. And we also have Michaela and Jack, who are our two university mentors. And so one of them, Jack, was doing his undergraduate degree in physics, Michaela in mechatronics and robotics. And so they got to step in and say, great, you come up with this experiment concept. So how do you take that to the next level? How do you actually turn that into a real experiment that's going to be able to fly on the space station? And so it was fantastic. And I want to highlight, that Michaela and Jack now both work in space industry. Michaela was right out of her degree, got a position with Nova Systems, and is now at EY working on programming. And Jack did his PhD with us in Earth observations and machine learning, and was a part of the team that won the Bushfire Challenge a couple years ago, and now is a lead data scientist studying Earth observations with EY. So incredible to see that direct translation of our students getting this access to a project and then right out of their degrees able to step into great careers. So the next experiment that we decided to, just to show you the diversity of what we've been able to explore, the next experiment that we did was around tooth decay. So our students now, they really switched gears. This year's team, new ideas. And they're really, troubled about astronauts. Okay, you're on these long-term space flights, and we're at the International Humans in Space Symposium, right? So what happens, to our biology, to our physiology, and all these important systems? And we know there's limited research, right? But we do know some things happen, and some of them, are a little bit concerning. But what about our teeth? This is such a critical, part of our health. And so they decided to look at a type of bacteria called S. mutans, which is naturally found in the mouth, and it's a non bad virus strain of Staphylococcus. And so what we looked at was how these microbe communities, when they're in space, we see that a lot of times. Unfortunately, that bacteria really thrive in the microgravity environment. So these bacteria on your teeth, they're eating all the sugar, they're having a good time, and then they're producing acid, which then causes the tooth decay. So we set up this entire experiment. We really wanted to understand, what happened to those bacteria colonies when they were in that microgravity environment. And you can see the entire experiment set up there on the left-hand side of your screen, of my screen, looking up at the big screen. And again, staying on this, this health journey. So the next group of students decided to look at chia. And this is a very, sturdy microgreen that has a very quick germination and then sprouting time, and has a very high nutritional content. So again, thinking about long-term space voyage, the food supply of astronauts and that real challenge to have fresh and healthy food on board. And so the students decided to grow chia seeds. And one thing I want to highlight that was fantastic about this experiment is when you're growing chia, it allows you to do an extremely endless amount of testing beforehand. So how do you get those optimal grow environments, that optimal engineering? You can see there a little testing, the actual platform we're going to grow everything in, the lighting. And so then that allowed us to program, this very specific day-night cycle with the lighting and everything that we wanted to replicate to understand what would happen in that space environment. So kind of what does this distill down into? And so what we found was, the value is this hands-on for everyone. So our university students, both undergraduate and postgraduate, are getting to apply their degree, their knowledge, and mentor students. So they're just, getting all kinds of great experience. Our staff are just having the best time getting to work with high school and undergraduate students and step in again and play these really senior researchers and help with these really complicated tasks to enable the secondary students to realize their experiment vision. And of course, the students, they have the control. They can't send black holes to the ISS, although, as an astrophysicist, I got to say that's a really interesting question. I don't think the astronauts would appreciate it. So, we have to be in those guidelines. But, we get to send an experiment that is on the ISS for a whole month. So that's just, incredible. But all of this, experience doesn't come without challenges. And so things that we really learned and took away from were the fact, that these are high school students and university students, and they're having to work on an experiment while they're studying. And so it's very intense, and it's a short amount of time. This isn't a research project that's been built on years of, previous research and applications. 6 months, start to finish, come up with your idea, test it, build it, fly it, all of that. And we're talking very complicated engineering and science. So it's the platform, it's the programming, it's the actual science. And so, we've got to get the students into Swinburne. We've got to get them using our facilities, but, add a pandemic, you throw all that out the window. So we really had to, adapt and think about how we can ensure that this program survives. And part of that too is the sustainability. Sending a payload, right now, if we want to access the space station, we're going overseas. And so there's a cost that's involved there. And there's also the policies. So sending payloads, to the United States, working with the Australian Space Agency. And that's a great story that Virginia can share with you all in person if you get a chance to ask her. But, it's a lot of learning. And so it's very challenging when you're starting like something like this, from the very beginning. And so what we decided to do was, how can we get this into the hands of more students and have a bit higher of an impact and scale it up? So we've had the support of the space agency from day zero, really, since the inception of this idea. And so that's been fantastic. And then through the sponsorship of the SmartSat CRC saying, okay, we need to get in there and inspire and start to train up the next workforce, here you go. So then that's enabled us to then create some more, content around this. So we took our space applications unit that's offered in the course that Virginia mentioned, and we distilled it into something that was actually really appropriate for high school students and adding in some extra elements. We also added in a pitch element. So, as you'll see with industry and research, if you're going to become a professional, you got to be able to talk about your research and your science to all different types of audiences. So how can we give them those skills? And then also we're working with more than one school. So how do we make sure everyone's a winner and gets that hands-on research experience, getting to access something that's been to space, getting to influence future payloads? And so we've implemented that, or we've integrated that as well. And of course, having access to our university students and staff and being very mindful about diversity and inclusion, because again, we want to promote an inclusive future workforce. So that has just been, terrific. And, just give you an idea of what we're seeing, so we were, blown away from day one, what the Haleberry students were able to bring to the table. And so we weren't sure when we opened this up to other schools and other teams, what was going to be the contribution and what was going to be the level. And this is just a snippet from this year's winning team. This is Turok College. So first of all, we've been able to have teams which are from private schools, all girls schools, but also government schools and mixed schools. So it's been fantastic because they all bring it. And I, this research project, we just heard about how the ARC Center of Excellence for Plants in Space was funded. Well, now you've got secondary students who are literally coming up with these research projects, which are on the exact same level of what we're going to be seeing achieved with this research center. And so they were, again, looking at microgreens, like the previous SHINE project, but really also thinking about, the genetic modification potential of plants and how do we grow the most robust and the most healthy and nutrient-rich plants for space. And so the core of this is that student teams are developing their own solutions for these very real challenges and research questions that we're seeing happening all around us in this thriving community. And so here's just a snapshot you can see. On the left side there, we have our Haleberry students who are working on analyzing their payload from last year, which was yogurt. And so we sent lactic acid producing bacteria up to the space station to see, that's right, can you make Greek yogurt in space? Because what astronaut doesn't want to have a yummy bowl of yogurt instead of their freeze-dried, mystery packet? And so, the students love being part of that, and it's a fantastic experiment, again, because you can do so much testing on Earth. And on the other picture, this is our winning team from the first space challenge that we did, and their team agriculture. So again, also looking at plants and how the Earth's electric field influences the direction of plant growth and those micro systems that are happening within plant growth. And so they got to come onto campus and analyze the yogurt as well. So it was just great to get to work with all of these different students. And so just to kind of summarize, we started working with one school. We've now, we scaled it up to work with multiple schools across the state of Victoria. And then, we went national, and we even thought, you know what, your school, you don't have enough students to make a team or enough teacher resources to support you. We'll create all-star teams. So you can work with students, across the country to be able to participate. And of course, we wouldn't be where we are without our international collaborations and the support of our payload partner, Rhodium Scientific, who are also experts in, the microbiology area. So it's been, a true science collaboration, as well as supporting, the student activity and enrichment. And from that, we're really proud to say that we have this national training and education program that is focused on secondary or high school students, but, also impacts our university students. And, last but not least, it impacts us as a university. And so Virginia touched on this. So, I'm talking a lot about the student-powered research. Well, you've seen in my presentation so far the breadth of, research topics that we've covered. And what it's taken is for us as a university to say, oh man, I'm an astrophysicist, and the students want to send magnetorheological fluid, what's that again, to the space station. So we're going to have to bring in, Chris from material science, or, robotics and mechatronics, and we've got to now do printed circuit boards and all of these complex, topics. And so it's been fantastic, because this has actually created conversation, within the university to create this interdisciplinary approach, and say, space just, this started with 3 astrophysicists saying, we look at space all the time, like how hard could it be to send stuff there? Long story short, as you've seen, and some of you have experienced, it's quite the challenge. So we need the support across the university. And so the science that, we have a whole microgravity experimentation program within the Space Technology and Industry Institute. And we're getting to support, this incredible research and innovation that can be used on Earth. And we're also getting to inspire and train the next workforce. So just, the kind of core science that we're now looking at is microorganisms. So like you saw with yogurt, what microorganisms are critical for this kind of food production, and affecting food as well, and soil. So if we want to grow plants in space, that's great, but plants have to grow out of something. So what is the optimal soil environment? Biofilm, so thinking about waste in these closed systems like the International Space Station, and even habitats on the moon and hopefully Mars. But then the plants themselves, so their medicinal purposes, and as well the kind of food nutrition value. And as Virginia mentioned, we want to promote access to microgravity platforms, so we're trying to champion that as we can with our cohort here in Australia and across the state. And we have been successful in ANT funding, which is Australian National Fabrication Facilities, to have a few of these benchtop, what are called random positioning machines, so microgravity simulators. So those are open facilities. We're so happy to collaborate, across the state. And if you're interested in using that for your research, please reach out to me. But as well, what Space Heritage has really, taught us is payload design and the integrity of your experiments. We have learned trial by fire, what it takes to do these bespoke setups and things like thermal control. And, so how can we go back in a university and look at things like composite materials to be really smart about that? Because how can we reduce the cost, reduce the risk? And of course, now we're experts in the guidelines and having this fantastic relationship with the ASA. So, the last point I want to touch on here is just the collaboration as well. So interdisciplinary across our university, the Victorian Consortium that we've been able to, come together on, these international partnerships that we're able to be part of. and of course, feeding all that back into industry. So what it comes down to is these, developing these new research applications that are supporting critical things like the Artemis program, Moon to Mars mission, and feeding that all back into Australian industry through these research results and these amazing, students that are now going to go out and be part of the workforce. So with that, I'll conclude and say thank you so much for listening to this presentation. There's so much more I would have loved to talk to you about in person there, but Virginia is there representing us. And also my email is there for you to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much.